Well, my next guest knows well the challenges and competing interests at the highest levels of government. David McLaughlin is a former Chief of Staff to the former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. He's with me now in the studio. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for coming in to talk to me about this. The Prime Minister cancelled a trip to Saskatchewan tonight for a political rally there. He's staying in Ottawa, staying in his office again tomorrow to have private meetings on this issue. He's bringing in outside help, apparently. Ambassador McNaughton, Canada's ambassador to the U.S., is part of these meetings, an outside pair of eyes on what to do next. Yeah. What should he be doing to deal with this crisis now?
Everything he hasn't done to date, because nothing he's done to date has worked. He started with a very crisp denial of the core legal issue, said I didn't direct anything, and hoped that that would be sufficient. And then he started to talk a bit about jobs. He tried to say everything was appropriate, and that all just melted away in the face of course, of Jody Wilson-Raybould's testimony, and now yesterday with the bombshell resignation of Jane Philpott. So he really has to come out and address this from a personal perspective. This has been seen, I think, by them as a bit of a government communications exercise. So we have to explain what's going on and try to justify a bit. We just didn't get our lines out properly. But what we've seen in the last 2 weeks is how public opinion has really laid this on the Prime Minister personally.
Right. And
so his personal leadership numbers are dropping, and it's taking down the integrity of the government as well.
Because that suggests the public at large, he's making an argument about kind of nuts and bolts and the sort of what's legal, what's not legal. That doesn't speak to the emotional side of the voter, right? The emotional, there are people thinks they're hearing this and something bad happened here, and he hasn't touched them that way yet. He hasn't got them to think with their hearts in a way that, okay, who's telling me the truth? How do I feel about these two sides?
Absolutely. There's an emotional connection that people have on these things. So he took the very strict legalistic line. I didn't direct her, so therefore I didn't cross a legal line, therefore everything I did was okay. That's not the way that the public is obviously taking this in with the information they're receiving. And the public isn't even waiting for the full, if you will, extent of the story to be told from some of the other players. Right. Jerry Butts tomorrow, the clerk as well, again, coming back, perhaps some other witnesses. So they're actually deciding. And when the public is deciding, and you're behind that, you better get out in front of that and try to help shape that opinion your way. And he hasn't been doing that, and therefore it's hardening against him, and that puts him and his government in a very tough position.
When you say that he's got to sort of talk to people, he's got to sort of show the personal side of what does that mean? There's some suggestion here that they may come out with some messaging about some contrition. Yeah, maybe we did push a little hard. Can you walk both those walks? Can you say, look, we still did nothing wrong, but maybe we pushed a little hard on it, and yet here's why we were doing it again. But to make it, to say if they felt like we went too far, then we did. That's all that matters. They felt like we pushed too hard.
Well, it's harder to say that now than it would have been 2 weeks ago. Right. What's happening now is Mr. Trudeau's motive for doing this, for how he's acted, has come under real suspicion for people. So I'm not convinced that a modest statement of contrition will be sufficient. I think he has to be prepared to go out and explain all of the circumstances in a more fulsome way. He has to be prepared to take a lot of questions, almost exhaust the patience of the press gallery in terms of taking questions and explaining and being prepared to put this behind him by saying, look, you judge it. Judge me on the basis of how I looked at this, what the circumstances really were. And it's fair enough that he says, look, it was really this and not that, and then give his explanation. If he comes out with just a line, even if it's a line of contrition, then I think it won't work, because I just don't think it'll be seen as enough at this point by the public.
Does he kick Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott out of Caucus? I mean, Sheila Copps, the former deputy prime minister, is out there saying that today, like this is enough. They don't have confidence in him. Why are they sitting there? Get them out.
Well, that will absolutely ratchet it up another level, no question. But the determination for kicking somebody out of Caucus in these kinds of circumstances is really how Caucus feels about it. At the end of the day, it's the club. Right. So it'll have a public perception issue, which is that he's probably, visiting kind of duress on them and saying, I'm punishing you, more punishment on them, by kicking them out, where the public doesn't seem to be having that view. But if Caucus is of the view that as a group, the consensus in there is that they broke some of the rules of the club, as it were. If they have broken their confidences, that's a different kind of dynamic. And so his dilemma really is that he's now playing to two different audiences. It's one thing if it's the public audience and you communicate properly, get your lines done properly, but the internal stuff of the party, the caucus, the cabinet, that's a lot of what we don't see in the public.
Right.
And if they are going south on the Prime Minister in some fashion, then it complicates his life even more.
Let's finish on this, and it's his own role in all of this, and the way Jody Wilson-Raybould has described it. Elizabeth May said on the program a little bit earlier that, look, there's still, to her, there's still an open question of exactly what role his was, and did he know everything that Mr. Butts was doing and others were doing around him, and that there's maybe some room there for, I don't know if the suggestion is that he can divest some of this, blame and put it on others, and whether he even wants to do that. Is his role in this still an open question to you? Is there more to find out, or do you think and perhaps has the public heard enough here that he was involved at least at some point, to the point where he had a meeting with her to say he was worried about his own seat in the province of Quebec?
There's a saying in politics that came from the famous Harold Macmillan when he's Prime Minister of the UK in the Night of the Long Knives, where he purged his cabinet and says, he hath no greater love than lays down his friends for his life. And that's what it would be in this case if he actually tried to divest it over onto others. But, politics, they say a good Prime Minister has to be a good butcher. And so, just in terms of political survival, sure. And there, in fact, may be some truth to that. As well. There was nothing inordinately wrong with the Prime Minister meeting with his Attorney General on this file. The question is, what did he say to her that constituted pressure in her mind? How much of it did it cross her line in terms of what she thought is her independence, etc.? So he still has to come back and explain, in his words, what his role was. So your question, absolutely. His role is still up for grabs for people. If he can explain that and contextualize it for Canadians in a way that, okay, that's not unreasonable, I can believe that, then he's got a fighting chance for this. If not, then he is really in some serious, even more serious difficulty. And the dilemma is here, he can't just come out with one small statement of contrition. He really has to, and then add to it later on.
Right.
It's really showtime.
All right, David McLaughlin, thanks for your perspective.
My pleasure.